All right, podcast listener. Just one. We got one. I'm pretty sure Mom's listening. So this is the Room for Heart podcast. My name is Phil McArdle. I am your host. I am the Chief Heart Officer at RoomReady. RoomReady, we deploy meeting technology in meeting spaces all around the country, all around the world. And we really focus on scalable, simple, reliable technology that your users can quickly adopt, build confidence in, and know that they have powerful ideas that won't be distracted by the technology that is supporting those ideas. So it's what we're all about. If that's your jam, look us up. This podcast is about what kind of goes into the human factors behind the technology that we install. So I kind of get at, how did you get into what you're doing with my guests? I get into what are you passionate about? What gets your heart beating fast? What gets you jazzed up in the morning? And this podcast is going to be a little bit different. This is not my typical guest. This is atypical, extraordinary. Lucas Cortazio is going to be joining us today. I haven't talked to Lucas in legit a few years. I was listening to some music when I was doing dishes, doing some breakfast for my family, cleaning up the kitchen. And I just had iTunes kind of rolling in the background. It's no secret I'm a Jesus dude. I had some Jesus tunes playing in the background. And I was like, man, this song is crushing it. What is this? I look over, and it's my boy Lucas. It's what? So I was like, golly. So I sent him a text message. There might have been some swearing in it. Might not have. There definitely was some swearing in it. But I was like, oh, snap. Dude, this is amazing. And so we started like a quick text, and then I asked him to jump on the podcast. So Lucas, thanks a ton for being on here. Tell us about what you do in your day-to-day life, and then I'm going to rewind us way the heck back to how you and I connected in the past. So what's your day-to-day look like, man?
Man, Phil, thanks for having me. Day-to-day, I mean, it's always kind of shifting, but I think I was even sharing with you a little bit of how I like to start my mornings. And for traveling, it's a little harder, but I like to wake up and have at least an hour of kind of preparation, and all sorts of things go into that. But scripture reading and listening to music at times, doing the dishes, just things. I can't remember exactly. I was watching a video the other day, but I can't remember the exact scientific word for this, but there's a mode that your mind goes into, like when you're doing the dishes or when you're driving or taking a shower.
Yeah.
I think it's beta or alpha. I can't remember exactly, but it's basically like just trying to get my mind to start the day in that mode, where, I'm doing things, but the mind is kind of just like free flowing. And, man, whenever I can start the day like that, it just adds so much, and then I can just kind of build on top of that. But my wife and I and our family, we've been in Naperville now for 7 years, which is kind of crazy to say out loud. It's been a while, and we are worship pastors here at Community Christian Church. I serve as the worship pastor at our Yellow Box location. That's 1 out of 10. It's the big one, but I'm the worship champion for the other 9 locations. So I get to pastor our worship pastors. I'm also in charge of music internally, and then in charge of our prayer team and our prayer movement for the whole church. And then I get to do this other thing, which is how we kind of got reconnected, which is community music. And I kind of, I get to run the label and the publishing side of that. And it's a lot of just business strategic conversations. And then I also lead the creative for community music, which is a lot of songwriting and video stuff. And so in all of that, bro, my days could look a number of different ways. There are many variables, from meeting with people that are coming into our church for the first time and getting to know them and hear their story, or sharing our story, to, strategic meetings, business meetings, with, Nashville labels or artists. I mean, it's pretty wide right now. And pretty crazy. And we have 3 kiddos, so a lot of that right now they're kind of homeschooled. It's with the school system, so they're still remote right now,
Yeah.
and so I'm sure one of them is going to interrupt them at some point here. They're all upstairs, but the day will involve conversations, dreaming, music, creative planning, all of the above and some more. That's a typical day for me.
Not terrible days.
Not terrible days.
That's great. Yeah. I actually started a morning routine about, I don't know, man, maybe it was like 5 or so months ago. So to kind of back up just a little bit on that, it was kind of funny. A friend of mine bought an infrared sauna and was like, dude, this is like the coolest thing. You should come over and try it. And I did. And he was like, yeah, door's always open. Come on over. So I was literally like going to my buddy's house like 2 or 3 times a week to awkwardly sit in his little like telephone booth sauna. And I started, kind of doing research on my own. And I talked to my wife into letting us give each other that gift for like an anniversary or something like that. So we got it a year and a half ago, and I would kind of use it sporadically. And I was like, man, this is silly. I invested like a ton of dollars in this, and I really love it. I just wasn't fitting it in the schedule, and so I just kind of drew a line in the sand, and I was like, no, my day's going to start at 5 a.m. and it's going to start in the sauna. And really, it's less about the sauna, and it's more about like that's like a clarity break, like that's a place I can just let my mind be creative and like bounce from idea to prayer, to idea, to reading, to, whatever. So, I sit in there and, meditate and I always bring a couple books, and I bring like a pad in with me. And so I'm always like, jotting things down, and I end up building a lot of to-do lists, but it's a straight hour every day. And it's been like the best thing for my sanity, for my creativity, for all those things. So at 5 a.m., awkwardly enough, I'm in a sauna 5 days a week, and then I try and stuff it in during nap time. We have a 2-year-old, almost 2-year-old named Walter, and so on the weekends, as soon as he goes down for his nap, I'm trying to like creep away to see if I can get that in. So.
I mean, if we're building every day, what a really good way to build, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like so many of us are just, we don't have a plan. We don't have, and I'm all for breaking plans and being creative within the plans.
Yeah.
Free flowing. But man, when you don't start with something, it just, it controls you at some point, right? Instead of you like being really like in control of the day that you want.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, man, in our society, in our culture, like, when do we ever just sit in quiet without technology, right? Like, I don't let myself bring my phone in there. There's no, there's no other things. It's just me and my thoughts in like a notepad or a book, right? And, I've had so many just, kind of aha moments in there where I couldn't work through something because I never gave myself enough time and enough freedom, to kind of bounce around. So it's been incredible, like total lifesaver.
I love what you just said, because I really do think that all the answers are here.
Yeah.
And here. And we don't allow ourselves to remember that we have the answers. We remember that, or rediscover that it's always been there. And so quiet does so many things. Quiet time does so many things, but that's one of them for sure. I concur. I've experienced that, especially in this season of COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a friend recommend a book to me that I totally was never going to read. Like, I totally thought like that title is stupid. I'm not going to read that book. But they kept hounding me. They kept being like, no, bro, dude, you got to read this book. So it's an old book. It was written in the 1930s, 1937. It was written by Napoleon Hill, and the book is called Think and Grow Rich. And I was like, man, I don't care. Like, right? I don't. But really, it's like, the title of the book could just be like Think and Grow. Right. Like he puts rich at the end because that's so attractive, to so many people. Right. But really the book is about, what do you want? Like, what do you desire? And then how do you align your life to move in that direction? And, like he actually talked about his son. His son was basically born without ears. This is back in the
Oh, wow.
1930s.
Mm.
And so like, when you read the book and like the imagery that he's talking about, he basically didn't have ears, but he was like, but I wanted my son to hear, and I wanted to plant that desire in my son. And so like,
Wow.
he was like, so I kind of like, I knew he couldn't hear me, but I like whispered into his ear, and then I tried to like get him to like have the desire to hear. And I tried to get him to like understand that there were things that he was
Huh.
missing, and want to hear these things. And like, I just kind of built that desire into my son. And then like, lo and behold, like my son started picking up. I could tell he was hearing things like, and so
Wow.
he ended, and again, this is like in the 1930s, right? Like and so he got his son to like kind of hear things and to start to be able to make out hearing. And then he got him in contact with a medical device company that was basically starting to make hearing aids, and ended up, that his son, had a normal life. Like again, in the 30s, if you couldn't hear anything, like that was not, heard of. So his son got a
No.
job, was adding value, and it was just out of this desire. Like, I want this desperately. I'm aligning myself, my resources,
Bro.
my intention, and
There it is.
right,
Intention.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like, so we're both like Jesus people. And
yeah,
so I'm fascinated by language. And I think, intention is, massive. I'm sure you've seen this in your life. And I see it all the time, more now than ever before. The things I think about,
yeah,
and I, and I think about so much that I care about them. The word care and intention coming together, what you care about and are intentional about, that's what you create. And that's
hmm,
the world that kind of, it presents itself to you at some point in the physical. Man,
yeah,
I don't know how it works.
yeah, yeah,
There's books about that kind of stuff out there, but I really do believe that, if you care and you're intentional about, transferring the thoughts into actual action,
yeah,
you're gonna see and receive what you're looking for. I think.
yeah, yeah.
I love it.
Talk about guys that are blessed beyond our capacity. So
Exactly.
I think about
How?
how we met, way back in the day, in the church community of Reunion. And talk a little bit about like what your life looked like before that. Like,
My gosh.
yeah,
Woo.
tell me about that. So you met our buddy Mike, and what were you
Yeah.
doing for a profession at that time?
At that time, I was a medical courier, but I had done so many things. Immigrant kid, right? My wife also an immigrant. We're both from Brazil. I got married when I was 19. So from
But
19 until
you
about
weren't born here, right? You were born in Brazil.
no, born in Brazil. Born in Brazil. Moved here when I was 12.
Yeah.
Met my wife when I was 17. We got married when I was 19. We won't discuss her age in the podcast because if you listen, she won't like that. But she's a little bit older than I am, and so even a little bit before I was just the other day I was thinking about this, but before we got married, I had this job at a nursing home. I was didn't go to college, right? Got my GED because I was stupid enough to cut some classes my freshman year of high school. So
Hmm.
on the way to, sorry, this is a little too much
It's
information. On
perfect.
the way to state semifinals with our volleyball team, we got a call from the AD saying, "Hey, Lucas can't play because he's not graduating." So anyway, all that stuff. That summer, I think, I started that job, and I was managing a cleaning crew for this nursing home
Hmm.
in Massachusetts. I forget the name of the place now, but it was Route 20. I remember that,
Hmm.
on the way to like Framingham, and I had like 25 people working for me, man, at age 18.
Yeah.
And the youngest person working for me was like 25.
Yeah.
And so I had to like wear a suit and tie every day to work. So I've done all sorts of things. I was in mortgage for a little while after that. And by the time I got to, attend reunion in Boston, I was driving like 650 miles a day, five
Yeah.
days a week. It was pretty gnarly, bro. But,
I
like
remember
we
that.
had two kids. Yeah, we had two kids at the time. And I was just telling somebody how I said it out loud at the dinner table like 3 nights ago. I said I was a zombie on the weekends. And Lana, who's now 9, she goes, "You were a zombie, Dad?" Figure of speech, baby
Figure
girl.
of speech.
Figure of speech. But yeah, we were. I think Evelyn was just a stay home mom at that time. I was driving, opening our own company to work with some labs, and so that's where I was back then.
Yeah,
driving.
Yeah,
all over New England.
So it's super funny to connect the dots, right? Like,
yeah,
driving 650 miles a day as a medical courier, and now you're to some extent living your dream life, right? Like, doing recording artist stuff, coordinating worship artists, working for the church, but also kind of totally in that. So talk to me about the bridge. So you started coming to Reunion, and you really had some people just, you put yourself out there, right? Didn't you reach out to Mike and be like, dude, I wrote this song, I recorded it on my guitar.
Well, so you say that because the bridge is always people.
Yeah,
I think the bridge it's not an idea. At least for me, it's never been an idea. It's always people. The people become a bridge between what is and what can be. The idea might be what sparks my motivation or whatever, but really, at the end of the day, the actual bridge will be people. So we started attending this church, which you were a part of, and I don't know that at this point we had met each other, but probably because you were always in the door greeting people. You did an okay job at that.
Okay.
So
I can shake hands real good.
I can shake hands real good.
Super good hugger. COVID. I'm so good at hugging.
Exactly. Yes. You're so good at that. And we started going to small group with Mike and Karen, and we had conversations about serving, but we were just not in a place. My wife and I were not in a place to serve the church. So we said, hey, let's just lay low for a little bit. And then a few months went by, and it was Christmas season, and which I don't know if you remember, but we used to do the Advent series. My gosh, what was it called?
Advent Conspiracy. Come on.
Advent Conspiracy. That's right. So Hank, our lead pastor at the time, he preached a message, taught this message, and you see how I'm in the Midwest again now. I said preached and not taught. And so he's like, at the end of it, he's going, hey, I want to invite you, if you're creative out there, to respond to what you just heard. So a person, right? An actual person became one of the bridges for me. The big one comes later, but he said, hey, if you want to respond to this message, write something, paint something, draw something, write a song, whatever. And so I kind of took that, man, and I kind of ran with it. And I remember, just riding in my car, driving those 650 miles, writing this song. I recorded it, maybe in the car still with no instrumentation, sent it to Mike. Didn't hear back. Mike Brown was the worship pastor, arts director of the church. Sent it to Mike. Didn't hear back. And then heard back 2 weeks later, and he's like, hey, could you sing this song on Sunday? I was like, what? So we sang, and it was, Pete was on saxophone, and we had a drummer, and then me on the guitar. That was the band that Sunday, and I sang that song, and went a few months without doing anything for the church again. Hank did another message, asked again if somebody wanted to, and that was a money series, a generosity series. I wrote another song, sent it to them, and then after that, started serving on the band with Mike Brown. Actually, before the band, I don't know if you remember, I started serving on the setup team, set up and tear down. Yeah. So, which for me was so instrumental in creating a heart that I didn't have of serving people and serving in the ways that were uncomfortable for me, right? That weren't really necessarily my lane. And I think you led that team, set up and tear down team. So that's where you and I got connected. Sometimes you'd pick me up and we drive together to the church at ungodly hours, with snow and crap on the ground. But yeah, so that's.
So I love what you said though about a person. Hank invited you, so you were like, hey, it's always people. It's always people, and it's always action, right? Like he put that invite out to a few hundred people, and maybe one other person responded, maybe not. I don't remember, but you did, right? You got an invite, took it serious, and then you were vulnerable, in
Yes.
and actually acting and putting that action, out. And how important is that? And all of our freaking life, right? Like,
Oh my gosh.
work life, relationships,
Yeah.
like being invited, acting, and then being vulnerable. That's it. That's the whole
Man.
jam.
And it totally is. And so a few months after that, that's when I got the big one. Because I say the big bridge for me to really connect. Because you were one of my bridges, Phil. I tell people the story of you showing me your tattoo, right? And
Yeah.
going like, because at that time, I think, yeah, there you go. Blank, right? Blank is not my savior.
Yeah.
Something else is. And so Jesus is.
Something else. It's fine. It's fine. No big deal.
For us, Jesus is, and
Yeah.
I think I got a sense that he is for everybody, but just some of us don't know that yet, and that's completely okay. It's just part of the journey. But I remember having Mike and Karen, the Browns, over for dinner with the kids, and at that time, I was like doing really well at work, and we had opened our business, and we're working with this lab, and Mike across the table, he has that, I see in you conversation, the I see in you the potential to do this. And he drops the grenade on me of, hey, you should do what I do. And Mike at the time was the arts director for our church. And I didn't know how to respond to that. That was the biggest invitation of my life.
Yeah.
And I didn't truly know how to respond to that. But what happened was 2 months later, I had quit half of my driving routes and was kind of giving that time to reunion and trying to get involved. And, we ended up planting a second location sometime after that, maybe a year after that, a year and a half or something like that. And the hours just kept getting crazier and crazier, by the way, because I still kept driving and then working.
You had to provide for a family.
I have to provide for a family, and that's all part of the dream, right? Especially when we talk to young people, we do a lot of that in our job right now. It's like, you see this future. Awesome. I love it. I mean, hopefully everybody sees a future where they're doing amazing things to change the world around them. But then there's a gap between now and then. And that is the doing that you're talking about. That's the action. It's saying yes and yes and visualizing, spending time here first and foremost, but then actually putting out, plans in place and steps to go and get that thing. It's not going to be handed to you. It just isn't. I think we serve an amazing God that is very gracious, and he meets us with things that we haven't even asked for. But I think he usually does when we're taking steps, right? When we are, sometimes we take those steps without even knowing, man.
Yeah.
We've both have had to do that countless times, but the moment that you do decide to take that first step, I think it's always met with grace, always met with support and provision for you to take that next one. And bro, that's how we live now. It's like, I don't know any other way to do this,
right,
other than just walking it out, sometimes running, sometimes crawling, but moving.
Yeah.
For sure.
We're kind of funny. I was actually in vocational ministry when we met, and now I'm not. And you were not in vocational ministry when we met, and now you are. But like equally, taking steps, right? So in my story, I was married, and then my first wife decided she didn't want to be married anymore, so so that ended, and I was still in ministry, and I was bringing my kids to the church at that some of those ungodly early morning hours, set up and tear down type of lifestyle. And I just kind of got a sense of, man, this isn't the right fit vocationally for where my family's at. And so had like a risky, like, what do I do next type of moment, right? So I didn't think that was the right thing to be doing, but that was what I was trained in. I went to school and actually studied ministry and studied kind of a niche in ministry called church planting, or starting new churches. And so like kind of again, like a family guy like you, kind of had a weird kind of risk bridge moment, right, where I said, okay, I've my education and everything is in ministry, but that's not the right thing anymore. So so what next? So I kind of just made that initial decision of like, okay, well, I need to figure something different out, and I don't know how long that's going to take or what that's going to look like. And so I called my brother, and I was just like, hey man, I don't know what's next, but I know something other than this vocationally is next. And I totally like would love for you just to kind of help me navigate that. So my brother owned a business, and he was like, well, dude, if you're telling me that you're looking for a next thing, then I call dibs. And, I kind of laughed, and I was like, what even does that mean? Like what? And he was like, Phil, we're growing like crazy, and you're in the Northeast. We could really use somebody that we know and we trust in the Northeast. And I would love for you to just kind of get some, do some business development, figure out how to get us started out in the Northeast. And I kind of laughed, like, what do I know about business or selling things or, the AV industry? And he kind of chuckled, and he was like, Phil, you've been selling Jesus for the last decade, and no one can see, taste, touch, or smell that product. So I feel like if we put some meeting room technology in your hands, you'll figure it out. So I was like, all right, bro, it's your investment. And it was that kind of pivotal moment that, stepped out into a new thing. And yeah, super funny. Like, I showed up to meetings and I didn't know, like, so this is funny. So he hired me as a salesperson. But I was the only remote employee we had at the time. This was back in 2014. So I was the only one that wasn't kind of reporting into our headquarters office in Central Illinois. And, I would chat with him every now and then about, what we do and what I'm trying to sell. And he would be like, just go get leads, like get a meeting and I'll do the meeting with you. It's fine. And, my boss at the time wasn't really that invested as a boss, very, very focused on what she was doing, which, so she didn't really give me that much training. I actually was talking to another sales guy that went to CrossFit with me, and he was like, hey man, what's the biggest PO you've gotten so far? I was like, I don't know what that is. And he goes, you don't know what that is? Aren't you in sales? And I was like, yeah, but I haven't sold anything. And he kind of laughed, and he was like, PO stands for purchase order. It's when someone wants to buy something from you, they give you a piece of paper that says, I would officially like to buy this thing from you. And I was cracking up. I was like, well, I haven't got one of those yet. So
I don't know what it is.
I don't know what that is, but yeah, so, taking risks, taking steps, like walking into the unknown and figuring it out as you go. Right. So you were a medical courier. Mike said, I think you can do what I do. You started, kind of volunteering a lot more time for the church. They, gave you a little bit of a position, resident. And
it's something
that allowed you to raise some dollars. So you had your medical courier job. You also had friends and family that were, kind of supporting that bridge a bit. And then when did an actual like full-time transition happen in there?
Man, we planted a second location in Somerville, Mass. And man, I miss those days so much. There's just a different energy about all that stuff, even pre-plant. But I was still not full-time at the church. At that time, I had transitioned. So we kind of, dissolved our company little thing that we had started to work with labs, and because I needed healthcare. So I started working 40 hours for this directly with this lab, and so they paid for healthcare, and so I did 40 hours a week there, plus another 45, 50 for the church in Somerville. Did that for like a year and a half. That was worse than the 650 miles a day. Just workload and in the like my mind was just gone, and our stuff at reunion was like late night sometimes, and Saturdays were crazy, trying to just prep for Sunday, just insanity, bro. And so we did a year and a half of that hybrid model. Then they brought me back Bay, and made me like the arts director. Mike moved to small groups, and you know, yeah, that was my first full-time position for a church, which was a huge win. But again, I remember having these conversations with you because I'm like, man, I need to be full-time. And that's when you did the tattoo wasn't even there yet. You're like, I got this idea. Yeah. And we were in Burlington, I think, having lunch. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, that. Like at Five Guys or something, right?
Something like that. And you're like, bro, no, like, you know, this isn't your savior. Like your full-time job is not your savior. If you can't figure some of this stuff right now, like scheduling and planning, like this job or getting this thing, it won't fix it for you. And that has really shaped me, man. And thank you for having that conversation with me. You know, I think we can create crutches so many times, you know, that actually impede us. You know, the excuses, they're just roadblocks for us to, you know, to keep us from the place that we're meant to be. Like we're meant for great things. I love, just to go back real quick to the book that you're reading. That word rich, I have no problem with that word. Yeah. I think I have a problem with how we usually define that. But I think I was created to be rich. It has nothing to do with money, you know, but rich in joy and you know, in health. And like I think you and I and all of us were created to be that. And I think oftentimes we are the ones that are keeping ourselves from experiencing a greater depth of richness, if you will. So, yeah.
No, I think that's super spot on. So you ended up getting the full-time job. At that point, you kind of go from being a medical courier to now you're in a full-time position where you really get to be an artist, right? Like you get to lean into, you know, what you feel like, you know, really is that sweet spot for you. What was that like? You know, tell me about that.
Man, it was phenomenal. And, you know, for those of you that don't know the Back Bay area in Boston, that's where Berklee School of Music and Boston Conservatory, those schools are right there. And those are two of the biggest in the world. And so, man, just not just getting to, you know, work full time as an artist, pastor, artist, whatever. It's all kind of the same thing. It's just different art at the end of the day. It was a dream come true, all that stuff. It was couldn't believe it half the time that I was getting to do what I was doing. But then the people, bro, like our musicians are most of them students at Berklee, you know, in Boco. And you know, that period of life again, like I really do miss that. The energy there was phenomenal. So not just getting to be an artist, but then getting to create with these young, massive potential artists. I mean, you know, which a lot of them have gone on to do unreal things.
Dude, it is. I'm not going to call anybody out on here, but like alumni from that time, I've seen mixing sound for Emmy award winning TV series. I've seen dudes on Jimmy Fallon. I've seen people on Good Morning America. It's ridiculous the people that we used to hang with that, you know, we're all students back there. And like every now and then I'll grab my 11-year-old now, Skylar, and I'll be like, hey, we know this person, you know, when we're watching TV or listening to, it's so funny. But you know, like the way that people inspire and encourage and call more out of you than you ever thought possible, right? Like,
and we got to do that with people. I don't know if you remember. I'll drop this name because he didn't really work with us, or was never really a part of the team, but he would attend our church from time to time. Charlie Puth, bro, used to come to reunion.
No way.
Which is crazy. So again, just a point of like, you never really know what you're getting to, like what seed you're getting to plant, or what seed you're getting to water. Those times we still get to do that now in the intensity that we were doing back then, and with the amount of talent, excellent talent that we had back then. I might never get to do that ever again. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, man, it is shocking. So I don't know if you ever follow a dude or listen to a dude named Gary Vee. Is that name familiar to you at all?
No.
So he's a dude in New York. He's an entrepreneur. immigrant,
Okay.
came over from Europe, Eastern Europe, and his parents and he all lived in a studio apartment in Queens growing up. His dad, worked in like liquor stores, eventually bought his own liquor store. Gary V ended up going to college up in the Boston area, ironically enough, but ended up in the family business with his dad in his dad's liquor store, and basically just kind of grinded out all through his 20s trying to help grow his dad's liquor store, and ended up starting a YouTube channel for wine tasting, like way back as YouTube was just getting started. Like he saw the power and the potential of that.
Wow.
Launched a daily YouTube show. Actually got noticed by the writers of Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel invited him to do like a segment on the Jimmy Kimmel show of like wine tasting.
No way.
So he did that. And then he instantly, he was also on Twitter at the time and like the early adopter, instantly because of the Jimmy Kimmel show picked up like 10 or 20,000 Twitter followers, and then wrote some things on Twitter about like the difference between Twitter and Facebook. And Facebook said, hey, if you're ever out in LA, you should come and do like a lunch and learn. And he was like, ironically, I'm going to be out there next week. Like, right. So he books, they're like, oh, perfect. We have an opening. So he does the lunch and learn. Turns out Zuck was in the background. Like he didn't know he was going to be there, but he was watching him, and says, hey, if you're still going to be in town tomorrow night, why don't we go do dinner? And Gary's like, yeah, I don't fly out he was supposed to fly out later that day. So he adjusted his flight. So he ends up getting dinner with Zuck. They start to build a little bit of a friendship. Another year and a half later, Zuck says, hey, my parents want to offload some of their shares. This is pre-IPO Facebook.
Wow.
They want to offload some of their shares, but it's only friends and family. Would you want to buy some shares? Gary's like, yeah, heck yeah, I do. So pre-IPO invests in Facebook, invests in Twitter, invests in Tumblr. All of this, he was an immigrant, right? Like family of immigrants, like worked in his dad's liquor store. Like he made $40,000 or $50,000 a year and just didn't spend any money because like he had that kind of immigrant mentality. So when Zuck said, hey, it's not like he had been killing it. Like he had just been like a guy on like Twitter and like, did a YouTube channel, but like nobody was sponsoring YouTube then. Right. So,
right.
But working in his parents' store, he had built up like $300,000 or $400,000 in savings, just invested it all in some of those, bigger technology companies. And, obviously is mega freaking rich now. But has always been.
I just Googled him. Yeah. I know that guy. Yes.
Yeah,
I just didn't remember the name. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, somebody I follow a ton. How did I get on this? Where did this start? What were we talking about?
I don't know.
Anyways,
saying yes to stuff.
Saying yes,
just
yeah, like
moving along, and no, we were talking about young people and how.
So the game. So Gary's always like. The game is always people. It's always, always, always people. And you never know what the guy you're sitting next to is capable of, what they're working on, what they're going to like. Encourage that dude, like cheer on that dude.
Yes.
Like it's always people are the only, differentiator. And so he talks about like, to athletes, he's like, hey, if you're an athlete at a college, you're the cool kid on campus. When you graduate, if you don't get like, you're not gonna be cool anymore. So like use your coolness to like all the people around you are gonna build businesses, are gonna like so God only knows like who we're bumping into on a day-to-day basis, right? Like
bro, I'll piggyback off of that.
Yeah.
And it's again another huge bridge for us, because Mike was really the biggest one to get us into this world. And then which, by the way, as a sales guy, we say this all the time. Like, you never sell a product, you sell yourself.
Yeah.
And even if you're selling Jesus, if you don't have him here, you can't sell it. Like it doesn't work, right? So it's the treasure that we really have on this life is people across the board. So anyway, about 8 years ago, we were doing this conference, church planning conference, Your World, Exponential. We got to. Somehow we got to, that was a big jump for us too, was getting to lead in that conference. And remember being out in the Irvine, LA area at Saddleback, and after one of the sessions, this guy Dale Edgerton comes up to me. He's like, "Man, really love what you guys do on stage, and like my son's a producer, and I'd love for him to work with you guys, and you guys work with him." And as you know, parents talk up their kids. So I'm picturing this dude in his underwear in his dad's basement, making beats. Like, I'm like, okay, dude, sure, that's awesome. And Dale, if you ever listen to this, man, Dale is a hero maker. Like, so, and then he goes, he was going to come see you guys, but he had to fly to Nashville because he's up for a couple of Dove Awards. I'm like, oh, he's a real producer. That's cool. So, and this was the first time. So it turns out his son, his name is Jeremy Edgerton, was a producer for early Bethel stuff. And, Brian and Jen Johnson, Jeremy Riddle. At the time, he was the president, and still is the president of Jesus Cultures label, and produces stuff for them. And so it's like, without that guy, without that conversation, we wouldn't be doing the things that we're doing right now in Nashville. And I could have brushed that guy off. I could have said no to the conversation to begin with, and say, hey, I'm busy. I got to go to the green room just to chill or whatever. And so I've learned that when it comes to people specifically, I think there are opportunities passing by us all the time, and some are worth our time. Some aren't anymore. There are opportunities out there that are just not worth my time or yours, and you get to, the more you do this, it's like a train. My dad used to say, it's a train that comes, you're at the station, the train passes by. Do you have your luggage with you, and are you ready to jump on? And sometimes now I'm learning that it's not even just a matter of, am I ready to jump on? I shouldn't jump on that train because it's an opportunity. It's presented to me. The universe presented it to me. I probably shouldn't take it. But when it comes to people, there's never not taking that opportunity for me. It's like, if hey, can we talk? Yeah, of course we can talk. Hey, can we grab lunch? Yes, of course we can do that. I don't care how big or small, quote unquote, your portfolio is, or your bank account is, or anything like that. Because you're right. I mean, that guy is completely, we have no idea the potential. Actually, we should know. We should have an idea of the potential that's inside of everybody. And that's a potential for greatness. I think everybody carries that. And I think for us to be able to see that, spot that, and then actually work with people to bring that out, man, that's a gift. I think whatever, if you're in the entertainment business, or if you're, wherever you find yourself today, that opportunity is always there. And it's basically, I think, if you strip down everything that we do, it boils down to that. Are you investing in people and in yourself? Are you loving people and loving yourself? And that to me is a gift that never stops. I get to do that every day, whether it's with my wife and kids here in this house, but as we leave, you get to do it all the time, man. And that to me is just glorious.
Well, it also comes back to like that mindset, right? Of, is it a zero sum game or is it kind of infinite universe, right? Like, and I heard somebody one time talking about, like, everybody's trying to get a bigger piece of the pie. I'm just trying to make the whole damn pie bigger, right? Like, and I love that so much. Like, oh my gosh, if we all just focused on making the pie bigger and less about like what our piece is, like, what a cool freaking world that would be. I mean, that's the one that I want to live in. That's the one that I want to try and create, right? That's the one that I want to evangelize and really put out there. And it's that belief in people and capabilities. And, it's funny, as I'm in this role, a chief heart officer is a super funny title.
I love it, man. And that's a good one.
So I actually needed to make another transition in our business. I was a sales guy, and then I became our VP of sales. And I was traveling all over the place, up and down the East Coast, out to the Midwest, a little bit of West Coast stuff. But I was basically, whenever I didn't have my kids, I was planes, trains, and automobiles, right? Like, and I had my kids 50% of the time. So anytime that I did not have them, I was somewhere else. And got remarried, and that lifestyle was still okay. She was super invested in her career, and she ended up getting pregnant, and she didn't tell me for
that happens.
She didn't tell me for
that
3 days.
Sometimes.
It does. She didn't tell me for 3 days because she was nervous about it. And so she finally is like, I'm pregnant, and this could be good news as long as you don't tell me I need to be a stay-at-home mom. And I started dying laughing. I was like, dibs, I'll be a stay-at-home dad. Like, I'm gonna dad so hard. And
yes.
So I told my brother, I was like, hey, I can't travel like I used to. And like, I mean, you mentioned earlier 80, 85 hour weeks. That was kind of the standard for me too in that VP of sales role, right? Because you're at client sites all day. And then at night is when you're doing all the, the proposal work. Also, I had a team of people that reported to me. So I was also navigating a lot of, helping them after hours. And it just wasn't going to be sustainable if I was going to, put any focus or attention on a newborn. So right. I kind of thought I was quitting by being like, hey, this job isn't the right fit. You need to go find a new VP of sales. And he kind of spun it on me again. He was like, okay. A couple months go by, and he was like, hey, what do you think about being our chief heart officer? And actually, I mentioned Gary Vee. We actually stole it from him because he actually has a woman by the name of Claude Silver as his chief heart officer. And I kind of knew what he meant, but I was like, Aaron, we're a small company. Like, we can't have a lot of like a huge HR department, right? And I don't know anything about compliance. I don't know anything about law. I don't know anything about. And he was like, no, we definitely have the capacity to bring that person in and hire an HR manager. And we did, and she's phenomenal. Like, she's so freaking good at her job. And Sarah, big shout out to you, because gosh, we'd be lost. But he was like, so we'll hire that person, but the business, you understand what we do, you understand the culture we're trying to create, the way we want to serve our employees, how we want to empower them, and I think you would be a great asset to our executive team in that, kind of people and experience side of things. So I stepped into that role and really just try to move the whole employee journey forward at our company, thinking about recruitment and onboarding, career development and exiting, and what it would look like to kind of curate all of those, really put attention into all of those different aspects of the employee journey, and did that hard for a couple of years, still doing that. But now with COVID, my company's like, but you can still sell things pretty good, and we need some more revenue right now. So can you take, let Sarah do everything she does really well, take some time back from that CHO kind of role and lean back into, to trying to do some biz dev. And so I'm also leaning back in there, which is really a lovely kind of hybrid place for me, because I wake up and think about our employees every day. I think about, we have 100 people spread out across 12 different states right now.
Wow.
We have 3 different office locations, and I meet with at least 3 people as people experience meetings where I just kind of check in on them, how they're doing. So I meet with everybody in our company every 9 months right now on that rotation.
I love that.
And that's been super exciting. But then I also get to lean in on the client stuff. And, in this whole COVID world where people kind of did video conferencing a little bit before COVID, but I knew what Zoom was, and you probably did, but it was not a household name until last March, right?
Right. Right. No, I was using Zoom before, but you're right. It wasn't massive.
Yeah. And now it's like we freaking live our lives on WebEx and Zoom and Microsoft Teams, and and the way that people are starting to get back into commercial spaces, everything is kind of changing. So it's been really lovely to get some swings at the bat at some of these hybrid type of environments that we're rolling out. So it's super
the future,
exciting.
bro.
Yeah.
It's the now actually, but yeah, we're getting to live in the future right now, which is it's very exciting. I think it opens the door for so many things.
Yeah.
Once we're okay with this, and it works.
Yeah.
You know, we've written many songs this season like this via Zoom, which is not how we typically would choose to do it, but you roll with the punches.
You do. You get dealt a hand, and you got to play that freaking hand. So
you got to play it.
It's funny because you say that you did Zoom, but you all, like, when we were texting, you were also like, "Bro, I've traveled more in this year." Yeah. Tell me about that. Like, what have you been doing? Why have you been traveling?
Because we're stupid.
Well, I will put it out there too that you were also telling me a ridiculous amount of tests that you've had, and you've been safe. So this is not willy nilly.
Thank you. Yes.
But
we've every time we travel, we take tests, and we want to make sure that people are safe. And we were traveling before COVID.
Yeah. Quite
a bit, but this season it just grew even more, which is kind of weird. But lots of songwriting.
Yeah.
So since November of last year, we've been in Atlanta, Tulsa, Dallas, Nashville, LA, Cincinnati, and Denver. And all of those trips, except Tulsa, but we're actually going back to Tulsa in April. All of those trips are songwriting trips, or recording something. So that's basically kind of like our hybrid life right now. We have stuff here, like I said, that we're pretty devoted to, but we also feel like God's kind of inviting us into more of outside of the local context, to come and meet people where they are. I mean, the songwriting thing is very interesting because the bulk of the songs that are coming out, just talk about church right now, but I could actually make the same point about mainstream.
Yeah.
Music business, mainstream is just a little bit different. It's like LA, New York, those are the two big spots. Is there stuff happening outside of that? Yeah, Austin and Chicago to a certain extent, but really those are the hubs. And then Nashville is the big hub for Christian music industry. And so most of the songs that are being written right now for the global church are coming from Nashville, from the writers, that are signed with the labels and the pub houses. So because of that guy I was telling you, Dale, that connected us to Jeremy. Jeremy connected us to, Capitol Records and Sony in Nashville. And, about 2.5 years ago, we went down and did our first ever co-write outside of just our folks here, which is terrifying and beautiful at the same time.
It's that invitation, action, vulnerability thing, right?
Again, you have to, and you step into these rooms, and you like, we've done this now multiple times where you're stepping into a room or a studio with somebody that you've looked up to for such a long time because they've been in that world before you, and one of the things early on that I learned is you comparison has no place. You walk into a room and you have to walk in there with humility and confidence. You have to know that you are meant to be in that room. So there's no reason to compare up or compare down with anybody else. You're just there, right? And but also the humility to know that this is a gift. This is something that I have to be thankful and cherish. And so
Claude Silver, the chief heart officer I mentioned earlier, she talks about, like, if you were invited to a meeting, take up space. Like you were meant to be in that meeting.
Show up.
Your contribution is needed. Like, your organization, your team needs the best version of you, and we need you to confidently put your ideas and your creativity out there. Sorry, I think a Walter just fell above me or something. Anyway, recording at home, podcast at home.
Recording at home. My kids are yelling. I had to text them like, "Shush! I'm in this important podcast.
So important. You don't even know. I'm showing up."
Man, showing up, it's half the battlefield, right? I mean, it's just saying yes. And I think that's when the opportunity, like the universe, there's this little story that Jesus tells about talents that this guy gives an amount of money, let's say $10 to this one person, $5 to this other person, and $1 to this other person. The first two took the $10, invested in them, grew the money that they had, and then this other one just kind of buried it. And we can't afford to be that last guy or gal. We can't afford to bury the opportunities, the gifts that were given to us. And every time we say yes to showing up, we're saying no. We want to reproduce and multiply this thing that was given to me. I want to speak up right now. And I know for some of us it's much easier to do that than for others, but those of us that don't struggle in that lane, we struggle in other lanes, and we have to take yeses. You know what I mean? So it's this whole thing is just and I love just to go back real quick. I don't even know where we were anymore, but the pie thing, I think it's, I love what you said. I think there might be even a step away from that matches this too. It's that abundance versus scarcity mentality, right? Of, maybe there is no pie. It's so massive that we can't, what I mean? It's like, it's so, and so it's just, again, getting our minds to this place where like, this happens a lot with like, songwriting, because you're in a room with 4 people and you imagine, spending 6 hours writing a song and then trying to figure out at the end of the day how to split that 100% of authorship for that song, right? Like you could go, I did 45% of the work. You only did 12% of the work. And so we don't do that. We walk into a room with 4 people. It's an even split, 25% for everybody right away, because I rather live in a world of abundance than a world where I need to like grab and take hold of anything that's in front of me. And like, I don't have to do that. We've learned that there's not just enough, there's more than enough for everybody. You know what I mean? And but I do love the language of like, let's make this pie flipping bigger, because it just needs to be bigger.
I think it's both and, right? Because like in our limited, in our mentality, we do think there's a size to the pie, right? Like we do, we do think there's some boundaries, and it's like, no, let's freaking push those back. Like let's figure out where we think it was, and let's make it further.
Yes.
Man. I could go on and on about that. Scarcity versus abundance, infinite theory.
Oh man. It really is. It's infinite. Like this well that we're all going to creatively, it's really infinite. We get glimpses of that from time to time. You know what I mean? And it really does change your life when you see it.
Kind of to go back to like, that showing up in a big way. Another, one of those kind of cliche things. I think I heard somebody that I freaking loved is, the rising tide raises all ships, right? And and I always want to be making everyone and everything around me better, bigger. Like even my competitors. It's so funny. Like in my industry, oftentimes people don't want to like collaborate or talk. They like, it's that like, oh, if I gotta get my piece of the pie. It's like, no, dang it, let's all work together and make it bigger. And not be like I follow this dude on LinkedIn that's is a sales trainer. I don't actually like, he makes good sales training content. No knocks on that, but I actually don't follow him for that. I follow him because I always see him commenting on competitors and like cheering them on. I'm being like, yo, this is so dope. Like, this is so smart. Like, I love what you're putting out here. And it's like, well, that's in direct competition with what you're putting out, but you're cheering them on. Like, I love that so freaking much, man.
That's what we were. I just remember now, and I wrote it down on the chat here so I don't forget. But you were asking about traveling, but let me try to tie this back up. But most of our traveling is actually going. So we were in Nashville writing for 2.5 years. And what we quickly understood is like that pie, the circle of where the songs are coming from, it's very small and it's concentrated in Nashville with a number of writers. And the cool thing is now Ev and I are one of those writers. Like we've got songs now that are being sung all over the globe, and it's very humbling. But you could stop there, right, Phil? You could go like, oh, we made it. We arrived. Like and I often find that people that are complaining about a system,
Yeah.
they either do it, most people, they either do it before they get into the system. So they're young and they're like, oh, those guys look, but then you get into the system and you're like, this is good. This is comfortable. So then you live out your time in the system, which everybody does. And then you leave the system. So here comes the second group of people that then poke holes into the system, is the people that have left the system, right? And we're going like, oh, we just got into this thing and it's a mess. And we need to fix it. So part of again, to use the pie, the word we've been using is a circle. It's a small circle of Nashville. And we want to expand that to the size of the earth. Yeah. If there are other people, if there's life in other planets, we want to go there too. But we need more songs that are coming out of other houses, other places, other cultures, other backgrounds, other languages. Right now, we really have a monopoly in our in our lane, the music industry, in our industry. Songs that are written in English in Nashville, and then exported to the rest of the world, and then they're translated into Spanish or Portuguese or Italian, whatever. And we're going, no, we need something different. We need a better system. Because this thing really is infinite. The circle is infinite already. So let's take steps into that reality. And so, man, like the last 3 weeks were insane. The last 3 weeks were in 4 weeks, LA, Orlando. Oh, Orlando. I forgot Orlando. LA, Orlando.
Sorry,
Denver,
Orlando.
I know.
You're forgettable.
I know. No, we love you guys. Denver and Cincinnati. And I think I looked at our list. So this year we've written 50 songs between my wife and I, man. which is crazy. And what I really love, and if you're from Nashville, plug your ears right now, but that I love that none of those songs were written in Nashville. And I love our writers in Nashville. I love our relationship. We're now signed with a big label down there. And I love all of those relationships, but there's something special elsewhere too. There are many special things elsewhere, and now we're finding it, man. And it's just beautiful and gorgeous to expand that circle. Like again, we could get complacent and go like, we're gonna live however long in this system, make really good money, and then retire, or we're gonna create some havoc, and we're gonna do that. We're gonna come in like a wrecking ball, and that's what we've been doing, and it's really fun.
So I'm like totally doing everything to refrain myself from being Miley and doing my best. Came in like a wrecking ball. Sorry, I couldn't.
That's okay. Yeah. That's good. I like that. That was good. That was a good tone right there.
Yeah. I mean, me in my auditions. I try and get on stage. I crave it in my good singing voice. But
that's right.
Dude, it's been right around an hour. I know I want to I could sit and talk with you forever. I swear. It's super funny. Again, haven't talked with you in like probably 5 years, and I feel like it was yesterday. I feel like, I just want to reach across the Zoom and give you a hug. And
I know.
But thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it, dude. I love. We hit on morning routines. We hit on infinite universe. We hit on taking risks. People and action and vulnerability. Like, dog, this was fire. This was good. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And appreciate it. Appreciate you and your heart. And look forward to doing stuff like this in the future.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Cheers.
It's been a blast.